Right. Just...
Hello, hello, hello.
And then if I'm talking, that's fine. Put it there. I'm on a very low log.
So it should be.
Oh no, it's because the table's not level. I feel like I'm going that way. Oh, that's very loud. Is that the gain one? On your side?
No.
Can you roll it? Whichever one the
That
gain
way,
is,
that
can
way,
you
that
roll
way,
it
that
down?
Down.
Until
that way.
us talking isn't a flat, peaky line.
Well, that is as low as it will go.
That's as low as it goes?
Unless that's high and low is the other way.
Maybe?
That's the other way.
That's the other way. And we don't want that.
Okay.
So whack it, I guess, right down. Maybe it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
That's better. Yeah. Right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We're in the woods again. We're doing it in the morning today. Anticipating scary 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Later today. After our sessions.
Yeah,
we
obviously.
hasten to add.
Obviously, it wouldn't be that silly. But right now it's very still. And I can hear something chirping.
Going crazy.
Actually, I was here this morning and it was quite... So there's crows and ravens that roost in the woods at night. And then I was the thing that disturbed them this morning. So about 30 ravens and crows just all suddenly went... "Rah!" It was quite cool. So we're going to talk about animals. So, do you want to start with the spider thing?
Yeah, so I guess a debate that crops up a lot when talking about animals at forest school, or any species other than human, is whether or not we let children pull the legs off spiders or
Cut a worm in half.
Or any of those things, or like cause an insect or an animal distress. And
I guess intentional distress, because us being here is
Well-
going to cause them distress.
yes, yeah.
You know, we have an
Yeah.
impact on... being
Yeah.
here is an
You
impact
can't deny
on the
it, can you?
wildlife.
Yeah, and how you approach it when children display that type of behaviour towards animals, and whether you accept that as part of play and learning and development. So there's one argument that would say that actually through allowing a child to pull the legs off a spider and understand that they've killed it,
The full experience.
yeah. that will develop a kind of long-lasting respect and love and empathy for nature because they've had that experience. Or whether you don't allow them to do that because, and you frame it with, we don't do that, that will hurt the spider, blah blah blah. And I was reading, actually I think it was Lily Horseman's blog, and she said she was at a conference, and I think it was something like half the, they're all forest school people, and half of them said that they had played that way when they were younger, and half said they hadn't. So it was really interesting. Some people had memories of like pouring a hot kettle of water on an ant's nest and that kind of thing. And so if you look at a whole community of adults who've chosen to work in this field and obviously are passionate about nature and care about animals, half of them had or
Half of them
remembered,
got there through that,
or like got there despite doing that or because of doing that or whatever, and whether or not the children are going to do that outside of forest school, anyway. And I just think it's a really interesting debate, because I would say definitely yours and mine instinct is like, no, don't do that. Like, we're looking, our three things about looking after yourself, looking after each other, and looking after nature, those would be kind of betrayed if we said, yeah, go for it, see what happens, chop the worm in half.
I think what jumps into my head is like, it's almost secondary to the behaviour, and it's like what you model, because it's very hard for children to understand when you're like making an exception without you being like really overt about like, we're gonna, I don't know, I can't think of a good example now.
I think I know what you mean. Like the kind of out, you know, going.
But if
usually we would always do bloody blah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
today I'm doing this because. Do you mean that you would verbalise that in the case of a child harming an animal?
Yeah, I think it's a very confusing message to send. To say, oh, we want to see the birds, we want to protect the environment, we want to not that one. We're going to pull the legs off that one.
Yeah,
it's a very weird to single out. I guess it's the abstract versus the specific. In an abstract way, we are sending the message like, look after, in quotes, nature, animals. But then you come down to this specific spider, and somehow that spider, although it becomes more real, if you say it's okay, it becomes less.
but it's also really hypocritical because, like, I can't imagine a situation where you or I would ever do that. I don't think
No.
we would in our sessions,
No.
and that's fine. That's just the way we run. But it's also very hypocritical that you are telling children not to pull the legs of a spider, yet they're wearing leather shoes. They've had bacon for breakfast. It's so you know, that is quite mind bending if you start to think about it. And yeah. And we do have some children, as we've talked about before, who are from a farming background. And they
Big
talk
farming
about
community.
their attitude towards animals, which is very different.
It's very I think more like utilitarian and
Yeah.
a bit more kind of like, no, they're there, they serve a purpose, which I think is possibly the same mindset as people saying pulling the legs off of this spider serves a purpose of informing this child. The spider's utility in this scenario is that it's a teaching tool, in the same way that, okay, we're going to kill the spider and you'll learn a lesson. Okay, we're going to kill the cow, but you get your shoes. You know, and that view. And I guess it's one that can, I guess. Although I do think there's a difference between. I think there's a subtle difference in terms of. I say this as I'm outright vegan, right? This is me. I do think it's different, particularly for children, in that you're never. I don't know many children that are encouraged to critically think about where their shoes come from. It's it's just like, we're gonna get shoes. You might know, oh, they're made of leather, but you know, people don't necessarily make that connection. But to see one single animal, and I guess it comes down, like, it's an intentional harm, and whereas buying leather shoes is an unconscious. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that.
But do you think that when a 5-year-old pulls, or even a 3-year-old, or even an older child pulls a leg of a spider, do you think they're going, I really want to hurt this spider? It's an intentional harm. Or do you think they're going, I agree.
Think
I agree sometimes.
times.
But sometimes might there be another approach in terms of, you know, what happens? Like almost kind of empty brain, kind of, I'm just in the flow of play. Yeah. I'm just going to do this. What happens? Oh my God, look what happens. I'm going to do that again. Oh, look what happens now. How does that make me feel? Do you know what I mean? Which is less a kind of like, I know that this spider's going to die and I want to kill it. Which also, you know, you could argue is a type of play. Like, it's, you know, about control and about power and maybe we learn about our power as humans, and therefore our responsibility as humans through that experience. I don't know. Kind of playing devil's advocate, I guess. I think there's another side of it which we often talk about, which is about kind of habitat. And so when we're doing bug hunts, for example, I would talk to the children a lot about habitat and, you know, where was it living? Where did you find it? Like, put it back where you found it. And I think that's kind of interesting in terms of, you know, does that kind of empathy and understanding of habitat have any long reach or not?
Well, there's kind of goes to where what I was talking about a few weeks ago with you about in the coyote guides, when it is now raining, by the way. We haven't just got a load of like crackly hiss. But talking about how, I mean, it sounds like it's very nostalgic and like the good old days, but that I guess for the most part of human history, relationship with an animal, like your favourite animal, was a specific animal. So knowing where that deer comes to drink, knowing where its footprints go, knowing where its things, do you know what I mean? The relationships with that, which I think is what you're coming to with the habitat idea, is that the more you learn and understand that the animal exists complexly, that it isn't just a single thing in an isolated moment, that the more you understand about the backstory, you start to appreciate how multifaceted things are. I think that's one of the first steps towards empathy towards animals. I think that, do you know?
Yeah, completely.
I guess it comes down to it is any animal, well, one, is any animal worth more than another? Because if it took and is an animal worth a child learning that lesson? If you also factor in that it might not be 1, it might be 5, it might be 10.
Well, but also,
I'm just going to close the cabin door.
There was also a thing I read about the, I don't know if it was on the same blog, about whether or not we, with that, if you don't want to be hypocritical about it, the only people who can really hand on heart say that they don't harm any animals as the Jain religion in India, where they sweep the floor before they walk so that they don't crush a single fly, because if you're using mozzie spray, if you are like doing any
you
of
have
these
an
things,
impact.
you have an impact, and you are killing, and therefore you are saying that some animals are worth more than others. I'm going to spray that mosquito, but don't hurt the woodlouse, it's got a home, It's just, it's just a really fascinating...
I think the idea of being absolutist about it, in that you either hurt nothing or, like, that because you can't hurt nothing is an argument that you should hurt things indiscriminately.
I know what you mean, but I think...
if I went absolutely mental with that, if I extrapolated that hugely, it's like going, some people will always steal, murder. I'm going really far with this, right? And that those aren't reasons. The fact that someone will always murder is not a reason to go, I don't try that hard not to murder, like some people are. I'm going very far.
I'm just saying that it's impossible for us to really honestly say to children all animals are equally important when that's clear that they're not to us. They aren't, because...
I disagree. I think they are equally important, and that you can strive... We're going very much into our own personal things. I think you can strive as much as possible to do minimum harm. And I think minimum harm is the what I'm aiming for. In all for me, minimum harm, maximum compassion. And I don't, if there was a way that I could like deter mozzies without a spray that is offensive, I'd be on it in a heartbeat.
Another changing topic completely. I find it interesting that a lot recently, especially with the younger ones, we've had quite a lot of discussion that the children have brought up about whether or not we are animals. Do you remember that? There's been lots
some are very
like,
convinced that we are animals.
I would say it's
humans
a 50-50 split, isn't it? About like, and I can't remember how these conversations start really, but they always end up at, but we're animals, aren't we? And then the other toddler's going, no, we're not animals. We're not animals. We're people. No, we are. But humans are animals. People are animals. And I find that really interesting. And I wonder whether that is from parents.
100%.
And that's really interesting.
I can't think where it would come from other than that. I can't. I potentially there's something that says that might come. Possibly if you are culturally from maybe a religious background. Lots of religions have this idea of dominion. And so that is one layer of separation. And I know there's a couple of people that run like religious forest schools. So I guess it would be interesting to try and I guess it comes down in those settings. There's a question about the word dominion. because from my understanding, the word is kind of like equally valid to be translated as like dominion or stewardship.
Yeah.
And if you think of yourself, if we go down that line of like, we're separate from animals. If you think of it as stewardship, you take on a very different role than if you think about dominion. Is kind of like, okay, they're there for our purpose. Yeah. We should pull the legs off of spiders. They teach us their, whatever.
Yeah.
Stewardship, I think, takes you down a route of like, okay, the goal is to set things up and to live maybe with and protect. I don't know. I do think it's a difficult. I would be interested to know. I think we're very much both on the same side of the fence on this one, which makes it a difficult. I think I can sort of empathise with the people who would say yes, pull the legs off of spiders. That it's a valuable learning thing, but I'm not sure I'm able right now to completely empathise with how they follow that through with the rest of their practice.
Yeah.
Hi guys, it's Lewis here. If you're enjoying listening to the ramblings that Trevor and I put out every week, and you're interested in doing a little bit more CPD or just spending some time out in the woods, every month we host a different training day, some of them more aimed at forest school teachers and outside educators, some of them more just aimed at having a day outside practicing some skills. So one we've got coming up in December is an outdoor cooking day. It's a whole day, 9 till 2:30, and we're just basically cooking all day, Dutch ovens, wood-fired ovens, roasting things in an underground oven, all kinds of different ways, and we're basically just cooking, eating and being outside all day. If you want to go and have a look at that, head to our website, and if you use the code podcast when you get there, then that knocks your booking down from £75 right down to £50, which is a pretty big saving. So I'll get back to the chat now. Cheers. But then maybe people...
it's about rather than going, right, everybody in my group, if you want to pull the legs off spiders, that is completely cool with me. Just go for it. Like, I can't imagine anyone doing that.
That's a good one. Go for that one.
But if you think about some of the children that we know, who have veered towards that in the past, it's about, I guess, how you approach that and whether you go in guns blazing, going, no, stop! One of our rules is you don't, look after nature, or whether you approach it in a more gentle way. Like, do you absolutely force them to stop?
No.
Or do you sit with them, talk them through it? X, Y, Z, then that's maybe the approach that these people who would argue, it's okay.
I think I
would take that kind of route.
Maybe in those scenarios, then maybe I sit somewhere in the middle because. Do you know? I'm not sure if I would physically stop someone. I think if they were, because I'm not sure. One, I'm not sure I would be quick enough. I think particularly with some children, they're very much, oh, look at the ladybird squash, which. But I think then. It's there's a difference, I think, between, like saying, encouraging it and allowing it. And I think I would try and get, if it had happened, I think I would try and get maximum emotional learning out of that scenario. I think that's where I would try and go.
Hopefully without too much guilt tripping and making a feeling
awful. No, lay it on with a shovel. I would be piling it on,
but we've talked,
making sure they went home crying. No,
when it has happened, we've planned in future sessions for opportunities for learning like that, haven't we? So we've had children, I can't remember what animal it was it a slug?
When?
Well, I can't name names, but there was an instance where a child either did or really wanted to hurt a creature, and I think it was a slug. And I think
it was a slug. Like, I know who you're thinking
slugs
of.
Are disgusting.
Yeah. He'd very much decided that they were not an animal worth his.
Just get rid of them. Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
And so the next session, just one of the activities that we were like, oh, you want to join in with this if you want? We're gonna make some clay creatures and we're going to make them at home and think about what they might eat and things like that. And he did really engage with it, and whether or not that has any longer effect than just that moment, I don't know. And but we do tend to sort of do that, don't we, when it does happen. And same thing when I worked in the school, and some children came up to me because they were really upset because some other children were stamping on the snowdrops and making the other children cry and going, look, we're killing the flowers. And so my instinct, rather than to, completely lay it on with the children that had done it, was the following session to tell a story and kind of have some activities about quite sort of like maybe pagan type sort of like, the spirits of things, the protectors of certain trees and plants, to see if that sort of changed their attitude towards the living things in their immediate environment.
I wonder if it comes to, so there is a play type, isn't there, mastery, which is very much changing the environment. And you could argue stamping on flowers, pulling the legs off of, I mean, we're kind of moving away from spiders here and talking about, but that stamping on flowers, killing habitat, destroying habitats, is part of mastery play. Even the kids sweeping the leaves. We've made a call where we go, that's the kind of mastery we allow, but mastery where, like, some children want to help me cut a tree down every week. And we go, well, you can do a bit of it with us, but that isn't a play we can facilitate every time. And there comes, and I guess I think it's okay not to share. Well, it's a very common thing, I think, in sort of progressive behaviour management, is to kind of go, these are the avenues under which you can do that. Do you know what I mean? You can, you can't do X, but you can do X under these conditions, or you can do Y and Z in the same way, or we can. So I guess I'm wondering whether there's a way that you could get the same. It's not going to be the same, but how close could you get with empathy and learning and that whole stewardship vibe without using a live, like, could you do you think you could get children with like a clay spider with stick legs? Do you think you could get them so invested in that that pulling the legs off gave them this or seeing it? Because I guess there's two parts to it, isn't there? There's a physical part, which is, oh look, the spider writhed around or can't walk or does whatever, that is a physical part. But there is an emotional part of, oh, how do I feel about the fact that I've done this? So in some ways, clay ball and sticks, if you could really get that, I mean, it would be a hard push, be a really hard push. But if
no, I don't know. I know what you're saying. It's interesting that. So Bob Hughes, when he's talking about play and talking about like evaluating a play space, one of the key things on his list is opportunity for interaction with other species. And I find that really interesting. And so he's kind of looking at play from a really biological perspective in terms of we are animals, and a theory of play is that it's helping us to evolve as a species, and that it's all about interacting with real species, and whether that's about empathy or something entirely different about just what it means to be on this planet and the other things that live there. I think that's another aspect which isn't really just about compassion and empathy. That is just about experiential, I'm here with these other things. How do they behave? What do they do? Which is a whole other layer. You were talking about like how it's kind of challenging sometimes to get children to engage with a lot of the wildlife here because of like noise or noisy play and all this kind of stuff, and actually you need to be quite quiet. And
I think it's a skill that's increasingly I think maybe where am I going with this? I think the payoff of seeing wildlife has become easier to obtain with the increase in availability of good nature documentaries, YouTube, where you can literally put in the most obscure animal in the world and see hours of footage about it. And I wonder whether that's taken something away from children talking about to each other. I'm talking many, many years ago now. I think I can imagine children saying they've all seen a deer in the play space. They come up to that woods and, oh, have you seen the deer? No, I haven't seen the deer. And that sort of motivation to go, I'm going to try really hard to, and those things that are I was nearly said they were unnatural for children. And I'm not sure that I agree with that, but it nearly came out of my mouth. They're not... Oh, no, I don't know where...
Do you mean like not every day? Like it's not...
I think for children to... That sounds very teaching. For children to sit still and be quiet for long periods of time...
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go with it. Is somewhat unnatural for lots of children.
Yeah.
But the payoff of interacting with other species is massive. But if you can get that without having to... It's a bit like, we can't... It sounds like coercion then, doesn't it? It's like a reward. If you couldn't say to the children that come here, like, it's amazing, you get to see a rabbit, if you can just stay with us, or these birds will come down.
Well, you can't guarantee it either, can you?
No, so that's one part of it. You can't guarantee it. Whereas on a screen, you can absolutely guarantee it. You know no one's going to put up a video on YouTube of 4 hours of like an empty space.
Yeah.
So there's that element of it that it is it's unguaranteeable.
But actually, I'm just thinking about how we have a lot of, it's got signs that animals have been here, isn't it? Here on our site. So we've got a lot of badgers who've got lovely badger toilets in a certain place and they leave trails, and they've been snuffling around in the leaves, especially this time of year. You can,
see all the trails
and squirrels and things. And I don't. In all of the times that we have done tracking or had a look at these different things, I don't think any child has ever said, "But I really want to see it." No child has said, "But where is it? I want to see it." They get as excited, I think, about... They're like, "Oh, yeah, look, it's been here as well." And you can talk about, "Oh, I think..." The kids will be like, "Oh, I think it was actually her doing this here. I think it was doing this here. And maybe this is this." And none of them have ever gone, "Oh, yeah, but, I want to see it." They do tend to kind of get that it's asleep now. It's not asleep under your feet. And I think that's quite kind of... magical in a way.
I think there's a possibly an age or comprehension jump when that happens, because I do think children broadly under 2 have been... My experience is that over 2, I agree with you, they're very interested in the signs and the tracks, and possibly because they're less precious, you can kind of all clamber around and see a trail on the floor and do whatever. But I definitely have had... so we had a little boy last week who was the only one that wanted to come on a nature walk with me and would not leave the badger set. Was pointing at it. They're in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're in there. Yeah, they're in there, and wanted to almost trying to get his head in. Couldn't see them, and was really was on the verge of getting frustrated that I'd told him they were there, but that he couldn't see them. Right. And that was... So I think there is a thing where...
That's my kid, yeah.
Possibly as well, it's like children over sort of 2-3 are able to conceptualise a little bit more. The animal moves around, they know what shape and size it is. But if I say to an 18-month-old, 2-year-old badger... Yeah. Okay, they've got a vague idea, maybe black and white face.
Yeah.
But they're going to be so curious about, well, how big is it? And how does it do that? And all those things are answered by seeing it. You see it and you immediately go, cool, bang.
Yeah.
So I think there is... I do think there is a difference, perhaps. And I think if you... I don't know, because I've not... I've, been teaching 6-ish, 7 years. And I'm yet to feel like I've had kind of like a stalking experience with children where we sat very still and an animal... not in like an intentional one, because I think sometimes we have where... So in the kindergarten, we sit down for lunch, and very often the robins will come and sit when they're within a metre of us, and the wrens and things like that.
But what about that time when the tawny owl flew overhead and down there, and we went to the fence, and they were also, it went that way.
True.
So some of them had seen it, and they were waiting to see it again, and they were so silent.
I guess that's the difference, isn't it, between nature that you see... But not by accident, but nature that exists around you, and intentionally looking, sitting in a deer hide, sitting in a...
And I actually think the stuff that happens spontaneously is more effective here at this site and with the groups that we work with, because unless you as the adult have seen tracks or signs of something, and then you're like, "Hey, come with me, I'll come and have a look at this," that kind of, as you say, like waiting and watching for something and for a lot of children, they don't even know what they're waiting and watching
Yeah.
for because they can't visualise it. Is harder.
Yeah, and I think there's something quite nice about going out. There's an Australian term. So have you heard of a walkabout? So walkabout is you literally start moving your feet. There is no intention to your walk. There's no direction that you're aware of. You just go for a walk, and I don't know that there's many spaces you could do it in this country that you'd have such open access that you wouldn't bump into things and kind of go, oh, I'm following a path or whatever. But
Dartmoor maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's fine.
I mean, that comes with its own risks.
Yeah.
But going on a walk around here with children is very equalising, I think, because even if you in your head know, there's badger toilet over there, I'm going to take them that way. On the way there, they're at a different height, they're tuned into different things, and they go, it's mushroom there.
Yeah,
you go,
yeah.
I've never seen
Yeah.
that because my eyes are focused on this, or I'm looking at it from there.
Yeah.
And actually, you can go as a whole group and all appreciate different things.
Yeah.
And that's very equalising in terms of interacting.
Yeah.
I think we've waffled quite a lot.
I think we've waffled a lot.
Yeah.
Apologies for any waffles that are incorrect. If I have gone, I think I read this somewhere and it was by this person. I'm sorry if I.
We should have that as a disclaimer for
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the because we just
Apologies for wrong waffles.
wrong waffles. Nice. Okay, right. Bye.
Bye.